Welcome, Vault Dwellers. My name is Nacho Bidness, and welcome to part 2 of my Fallout in Real Life series. If you haven't seen part 1, I highly recommend going back and watching that for some background information. We're going to continue our survey of the real-world locations for the modern Fallout games and DLCs today, both as a kind of fun exercise in and of itself, but also to give you a preview of what I've got in store for you when it comes to videos for particular sublocations inside these major areas. A couple of things I forgot to mention in my first video, and the first is that my epic month-long road trip was not solely to visit Fallout locations. I did a lot more. I'm not that crazy or that obsessed. Second, taking a month off was a real struggle. Even though it was unpaid, my employer did not want me to leave for a month. And I'm lucky that my employer values my services, but I did finally have to give them an ultimatum. I had to tell them that the road trip was going to happen, and that was not their choice. Their only choice was whether or not they were going to retain my services when it was over. Lucky for me, they decided to keep me on, but definitely something that I really had to fight for and struggle with. So don't think that this was something that I was able to just kind of fall into without a lot of planning, saving a lot of money, and a certain amount of risk with my employment. Without further ado, let's continue our survey of these real-world locations for Fallout. The Old World Blues DLC is interesting in that there's not really an exact analog to the real-world location for the in-game location. However, the consensus among the fandom seems to be that it is probably located in the Nevada test site, specifically Area 6 and Area 30 of that site. However, because that is a secure military installation, after all, the Nevada test site does include Area 51, it's not a place that I can go visit. At least not without potentially getting arrested or even possibly shot. So we're not going to be seeing this particular location in my video series. The fourth DLC for Fallout New Vegas is Lonesome Road, and there is an actual town called Ashton, Nevada that appears in that DLC. I missed it. I missed it because Ashton is currently a ghost town, and in the lore of the game, both Ashton and Hopeville had been built up during the 2060s, and so there's probably not a lot to see in the current Ashton that is going to look anything like Lonesome Road, not least because there hasn't been hundreds of underground nukes that have gone off in the area. That said, I've also been to Death Valley, and although we're not sure that it exactly maps to the divide in Lonesome Road, I think it might. If nothing else, I recommend going to Death Valley because it is as close to being on another world as I have ever been. That takes us to the next major game in the series, Fallout 4, which is set in Boston, Massachusetts. I can't give you a review of overall locations and accuracy for the entire area because I was very rushed for time when I was in Boston. However, I was able to visit all 4 of the major faction headquarters for the Minutemen, the Brotherhood of Steel, the Railroad, and the Institute. So I hope you're looking forward to that. The first DLC for Fallout 4 was Automatron, and that was also set in the Boston area. No major new locations, no new world map, and everything that was added to the Boston map were things like Robco dealerships and the like that would not exist during our time frame in the real world. So kind of nothing to see here. Move along. Unfortunately, the next group of DLC also doesn't really give us anything in the real world to go look at. Although they didn't come out all together, I am going to group the Wasteland Workshop, the Contraptions Workshop, and the Vault-Tec Workshop together. None of them added anything that is in the real world, and the only map location I can even think of that was added was a vault for the Vault-Tec Workshop, which of course we can't go see, at least not yet. Fortunately, the first major DLC of Fallout 4, Far Harbor, is a little bit more rewarding. It's, of course, set in the town of Bar Harbor, Maine, using the same old gag that they've used many times before of a damage sign giving you a slightly different reading of a town name. There wasn't a ton in Bar Harbor that stuck out to me. That was none of that feeling that I got in some places of like, oh my gosh, I have been here before. That said, I very much was able to kind of read the room and feel the inspiration that we had there. So that's going to be a good one. As for the second major DLC for Fallout 4, Nuka World, the best guess that we can come up with for a real-world location for this would be Springfield, Massachusetts. There is a Six Flags New England amusement park there. It is located relatively close to Boston, and it's still in New England. That's kind of all of the clues that we have for a real-world location. Of course, since Nuka-Cola hasn't been invented yet in our timeline, that means that even if I had gone to Springfield, Massachusetts, there would probably be very little there that I could recognize from in-game. So that brings us to Fallout 76 and Appalachia. I know a lot of people don't like this game, and I have to wonder myself whether or not this will eventually be considered canon, or whether it will be considered kind of a tangent story similar to Brotherhood of Steel, the game that was made for the original Xbox and PlayStation 2. That game has faded into obscurity, and I think there's a lot of folks out there that hope that will happen to Fallout 76. Nevertheless, it is a huge game map. You can see I've just put a great big green blob on West Virginia, in Virginia, and just edging into Kentucky. And I'm not sure if Fallout 1, Fallout 2, or Fallout Tactics had an actual larger real-world location, but those classic Fallout games did not have a contiguous map. They were more things where you could fast travel between locations and potentially have random encounters based on background dice rolls. Whereas West Virginia has many named locations that we can go visit. In general, I found that most of those named locations did not bear much resemblance to the in-game locations, but there were a few that were spot on. So where does that leave us overall? Well, I count 11 dots in the continental United States and 1 dot in Alaska. It makes me wonder what happened in Hawaii. Are there people there still, or was the island so dependent on the mainland that it was not able to be self-sufficient, and the whole chain has died out and there's nothing left there but ruins? I digress. Of these 12 dots, 6 of them are red, indicating that I have not visited them, and 6 of them are green. However, I have X'd out 3 of these red dots. 2 of them, Anchorage, Alaska, and Springfield, Massachusetts, have nothing there that we're going to be able to recognize as being from the Fallout world. Meanwhile, the Nevada test site is inaccessible to civilians, and I don't feel like getting shot for my Fallout obsession. Of the 3 red dots that are left, I have circled 2 that I think have, at most, a single video out of them and probably just not worth the trip. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania has one recognizable bridge from the real world in Fallout 3 DLC, and Ashton, Nevada is a ghost town, although I have not seen photographs of it. I don't believe that there's going to be much there that looks very much like the Ashton that we saw in Lonesome Road. Which leaves us with one red dot that I haven't visited and 6 green dots that I have. And each of those green dots has multiple locations within them that I've got videos to show you. So there is a lot coming, and I'm excited to share it. I had a lot of fun taking these videos, and that was its own reward, was visiting those locations. But I do hope that you guys are going to enjoy my sharing those with you. So what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. Did I get anything wrong? Is there any locations that I missed? And let me know if you're looking forward to the rest of the series. If you liked the video, hit the like button. And if you didn't like, please tell me why in a comment so I can do better next time. And until next time, I'm saying it's a great big country and you should go travel in it.